Hi, I'm Molly Kitchen, and welcome to this handstand tutorial. So handstand is a posture where you are obviously bearing weight in your upper body. It's also a strong flexion at the wrists, and the whole body is stacked right on top of itself, right? So very good place to start is a posture that many folks do all the time, downward facing dog. So you could start out doing a good strong downward dog with very conscious placement of your hands. So I'm looking forward at my hands here, and I'm turning my hands out so the index fingers are pointing forward. It's a little bit of a different arrangement for the wrists. And I'm pressing every finger pad and knuckle mound down. And then as I'm stretching my hips up and back here, I'm lifting my underarms and wrapping from my inner upper arms, like the biceps area, wrapping that out and down. So there's a big external rotation in the upper arms. So downward dog, building strength there. It's nice to know that you're kind of putting a deposit in the handstand bank anytime you're doing a good strong downward dog. Next posture that might prove useful is then high plank. So there you're shifting, so shoulders are over wrists, very similar to the alignment of the shoulders and the wrists in handstand, obviously quite different for the rest of the body, but nonetheless moving back and forth between downward dog and high plank, really great. And you can start to get the alignment of the shoulders directly over the wrist while keeping some of that external rotation in the upper arm bones. Another way that you can get that is just simply by trying it out. So if you're standing, you can take left hand, hold the right biceps, arm out in front of you, and externally rotate your arm. And obviously if you did that all the way, you could turn the whole arm out, keeping the upper arm out, turn the lower arm in. So there's two bones in the lower arm, so we can get that articulation of turning in. And for handstand, it's a big, strong push. So a nice way to get the quality of the push without the weight bearing is to do a supine handstand. So next possibility for trying out some handstand preparation is coming into, I'm gonna check your distance from the wall, coming into handstand laying on your back, your hands pressing into the wall. I'm still too close there. So here, it's not a relaxation in the rest of the body, it's an activation through the whole body. So I'm pressing my palms in toward the wall. Here is a good place to notice the tendency for the ribs to pop up and the low back to come away from the floor. That's going to look kind of like a banana back, they often call it, if you're upside down, and it's not great if you're weight bearing. So here, draw your navel towards your spine, draw the bottom ribs down, and lengthen and extend from your low back and tailbone out through your heels. They're getting that sense of pushing into something, and while I'm pushing here, I'm also extending through the rest of my body. And a big aim here is to keep the back body long. I'll show you that standing as well. So if you take your arms up into the overhead plane, something that can happen quite easily is if the shoulders are tight, then the ribs will pop forward and the hips will pop back. So it appears that you've got the arms in the overhead plane, but really if the torso was stable, then the arms maybe wouldn't be totally overhead. So for many folks, getting that range of motion and getting the opening in the shoulders, the armpit chest, that inner area is another place to work. Downward dog can help with that. There's also specific stretches you can work on. So here, I'm flexing my wrists and pushing up, and at the same time, I'm knitting together the front of the body, drawing the bottom ribs and the top of the hips closer together. And then my legs are active and I'm pushing into the floor. So if you try this out, you're doing an upside down handstand, which is really just standing with the arms overhead. It's a good way to get a feeling sense of the posture without all that weight bearing in the hands. All right, next up, I usually tell my students that this next posture is actually more difficult than handstand, but a great way to build the strength to get into handstand. It's called L shape. So I'm gonna sit down and stretch my legs out with my hips at the wall. Then I'm gonna note where my heels are, and that's where the heels of my hands are gonna go. I'm gonna place my hands with much care, index fingers pointing forward to encourage the external rotation, firm rooting through every finger pad and knuckle mound. From there, I'm going to come into kind of an awkward downward dog, shortened downward dog, and then shift forward. As I shift forward, I'm going to look straight down and find something really specific to look at. So that drishti, that focal point, can be very helpful coming into working toward a freestanding handstand. So as I look down, I'm going to draw my shoulder blades in, not as an end point, but as a way to get that external rotation. So once I get that external rotation, outer upper arms wrapping back, I'm going to push into the floor. And then looking back at the wall, I take one foot up and I'm going to say, okay, foot, you're just going to go to hip height. And I'm going to keep you at hip height, not go any higher. As I press into that foot, I can lift the other foot up. Here, there's quite a possibility of overarching through the low back. So again, low belly drawing in, bottom ribs drawing in, then that big push through the arms. So if you want to try that one out, it's a ton of work. Your body's at a 90-degree angle, so not only are your legs and your low belly muscles having to hold up the lower half of the body, you're also holding up the upper half of your body as well. L-shape's such a great preparation for a handstand. Again, it can be even harder than handstand itself. So the Sanskrit term for handstand is Adho Mukha Vrikshasana, or downward facing tree. If you think of that push as a tree, and the tree has its roots up in the air, so the roots actually want to be really strong and extending, not just kind of dangling there. That quality of drawing low belly in and knitting together the front of the body and getting length through the back of the body can really help. So next possibility with handstand is kicking up with one leg. So here as I face the wall, I'm going to set my hands with the same intention. Shift forward, shoulders over wrists. Work toward that external rotation in the upper arms. And then also a sense of pushing and pressing down. Then I'm going to step one leg in and lift the other leg. As you start to come up into handstand, two things become very important. One, keep the arms straight. Commit to not bending your arms. If you bend your arms, your head comes toward the floor. Not so great. The other is keep the leg that's lifted straight as well. So it becomes a nice long lever. So I'm going to commit to keeping this lifted leg straight and give a little hop. And a little hop. And if I find the wall, I'm going to bring the other leg with it, and then I'm going to reset. I'm going to push, and then I'm going to squeeze my legs together and draw my bottom ribs in and press. And as I press, I can even feel my heels go up the wall a little bit. As my back body gets a little bit longer, my front body draws in. Good. And then when you're ready, you can do one foot down at a time, ideally. Resting between sides or between attempts. Here to give the wrists a break, one of my favorite wrist stretches, I call it the Popeye. You'll know why in a moment. Take the arms out, turn palms up, make fists. Bend your elbows, draw your fists in towards your inner forearm. So there's our Popeye shape, so fun. Look fierce here. And then from here, begin to extend your arms out, but keep the fist drawing toward the inner forearms. This is more of a forearm stretch. Super important, all the strength in the muscles of the forearms. And then as the arms become straight, articulate through your fingers, circle through your wrists. Another great one for the wrists. Take the index finger and the thumb and wrap it around the inside of the opposite wrist. And really just close the fingers around the wrist and squeeze. So you're providing some compression, sort of a reset for the wrists there. You can do that on the other side as well, that wrap around. So if you are working in kicking up to handstand at the wall, and if that's getting pretty comfortable for you, one, notice if you always kick up with the same leg. Try switching, kicking up with the other leg. Two, work to keep your head lifted and to look at the floor. And as you look at the floor, work to keep low belly drawing in, tailbone lengthening, that whole knitting together of the front body and lengthening of the back body. And 3, you can try timings of your handstand at the wall. So since you have found some wall space, we'll do legs up the wall to finish practice. Bring one hip nice and close to the wall, and then swing your legs up the wall as you swing your torso around to the floor. You could choose to bend your knees here, have the legs straighter. You definitely want your legs relaxed. So see what feels most comfortable for you. Arms could be out to the side. You could take the arms up overhead if that feels good to you. Start to settle in. And start to turn your attention toward your breath and your inward experience. Handstands are big work, and they're also big shapes in the body that require a lot of strength and a lot of mental energy. Keeping track of where you are in space, keeping you safe. So now feeling your body resting against the floor and the wall. Let yourself relax, not just on a physical level, but your mental, emotional level as well. Take several minutes here to be with yourself and to allow this handstand practice to integrate.